Hi guys, welcome to my channel. The DNC, Democratic National Convention, is underway in Chicago, and it seems like there's already drama surrounding it. Outside the DNC, Planned Parenthood has set up a van, and in that van they will be offering free abortions and free vasectomies. This is rather strange because people are wondering, why would anyone want to have a procedure like this done in a van outside the DNC? And Planned Parenthood has basically said that they wanted to offer this procedure for free to anyone who wanted it, so that they could show that it was that easy to get medical care, that it is a necessary medical procedure, and that it should be that easy to get it if you need it. They also want to offer vasectomies to men, and they also wanted people to know that a vasectomy takes as short as 20 minutes. One of the doctors wanted to make it clear that they do tell patients about the risks and also the benefits of the procedure. And she did say that they do tell patients that the procedure is permanent. Now, the procedure is mistakenly thought to be reversible. A lot of people, if you ask them about vasectomies, will tell you, oh no, it's totally reversible. It can be reversible, but like this doctor said, it is a procedure that is made to be permanent, and most of the time it is permanent, although some people are able to successfully reverse the procedure, a vasectomy. So if you do get a vasectomy and then you decide later on you do actually want children, it's too late. You can't reverse it most of the time, but some people are lucky enough that they can reverse it. And as for the abortions, they are giving them up. The slots that they had have been completely filled. They'll be doing these procedures in a van on Monday, yesterday, and today, Tuesday. And for me, there's just something that feels completely disconnected from nature and like so clinical about it and so divorced from reality. Someone having an abortion in a van and then walking out and having a taco afterwards is so strange. Like, this is something very serious and spiritual that people go through, and to offer it in a van like it's nothing is so strange. It's just a hatred of life and just a complete disregard for really how deep the decision to have an abortion is. Now, I used to be pro-choice. I used to be pro-abortion until I had a child of my own, and then I realized that while I was pregnant with my daughter, I had an app, and on that app it would show you the development of the baby from 4 weeks, 5 weeks, 6 weeks, 7 weeks, 8 weeks, and by the 8th week your child has a heartbeat, and it's really just like a magical process. So after that, I still like kind of thought like, oh, it's a woman's choice, and you know, all of that. But it's something that I no longer believed in, because I had just seen how quickly life develops. Like by the 10th week, how far, like what the kinds of things that the child is developing only at the 10th week. And then thereafter, I returned back to Christianity. And then, of course, after that, there was no way that I could believe in abortion. One of my favorite verses is from Jeremiah, and it says, "Before I formed you in the womb, I knew you. Before you were born, I set you apart." And when I read that, I was shocked at how much it hit me. And then that's when you just realize that as a Christian, there's no way you can justify abortion. And though I sympathize with people that feel like they're so trapped that they need to be in that position, I also just it's something that I couldn't justify as a Christian. Again, I used to be pro-choice, and I used to think, also when we are in school, people will usually, teachers and the education system and the way we are taught about abortion is very distant from reality. Again, it's just like they teach it to us in a very clinical way. It's not taught in a spiritual way. It's not taught as ending life. We're not taught that a child has their heartbeat at 7-8 weeks. So you're taught it's just a clump of cells. You're not taught that this is a child and that they have a heartbeat by the time they're 7-8 weeks. And so when you think about it, you're just like, I'm just getting rid of a clump of cells. And if you really want to justify it to yourself, that's what you think. And that's what you really believe. And so you find a way to kind of separate from the fact that it's a life. You don't want to say it's a kid, it's a child, it's a life. You want to instead say it's just a clump of cells. It's just, it's basically an inconvenience that I need to get rid of so that I can continue with my education and continue with whatever I was doing before. I think that the focus is always on don't get an abortion, no matter how poor you are, just push through and have the child anyway. And the argument against that is usually that these children, people are having like drug addicts and irresponsible parents, hateful parents, parents that already have many children are having kids, and then they're just abusing them, they're abandoning them, the kids end up on the streets, the kids are hungry, they grow up in like awful conditions. And that is also like, that's sad as well. And we need to be dealing with the problem like at the beginning, before people are pregnant. We need to be changing the way that we're teaching sex education. And we need to be changing the way we're approaching these conversations. You can't teach children that it's a clump of cells because that's just not true. And you also can't teach children that like their decisions don't have consequences, because the spiritual consequences that come from that kind of decision are deep. And also you can't tell children that just have sex, there are condoms, there's this and there's that and there's that. I think the way that sex education is being taught in schools, it's not taught as something where two people are coming together to become one. People also always talk about soul ties, and that like people will be in abusive relationships and really difficult relationships, but because of the ties that they have to this person, they're not able to get away from the relationship. And that too may be something spiritual. I don't know much about it, but that's why the conversation around sex with children shouldn't be something that's taken lightly. In fact, I think it's something that should be left up to parents to teach, so that they're the ones teaching children about sex and really telling them how serious it actually is. Not that it's not something that is like a throwaway. Like sex has real life consequences. You will create life. That's the main goal for sex, is to create life. And so this is something that needs to be taught to teenagers when they get to like 16 and they're like wanting to explore these subjects. From that time, you're just told like it's something that's very disposable and it's something that has no real meaning, and that's just not true. I also think that that kind of education is intended to make children think of it that way, to make children think about it as something that is has no real consequences or meaning. Now, Planned Parenthood is something that an organization that was started by a woman who was a eugenicist. Like, she totally believed that the solution for eugenicists to aid in reducing the population was going to be birth control. So Margaret Sanger believed that Black people were quote unquote feeble-minded, and that people that were feeble-minded seemed to produce much more than normal people, quote unquote normal people. And so she wanted to control the way that Black Americans reproduced. So to do that, she wanted to use birth control. Margaret Sanger was a nurse, and she said that she had seen both white and black moms having children that they would rather not have, or finding themselves pregnant because there was no birth control at that time. And so she said that she developed it for that. But once she knew more about birth control, she was like, this is going to be perfect. This is going to be the perfect way to get rid of, or like slow down, the process of Black Americans reproducing. And so she claimed that birth control is really the most eugenic method in reducing the Black population. So while it seems that like she was the most evil person ever, she explained it away as like, this is going to be the betterment of humanity. Like, humanity will be way better off if we stop Black people from reproducing. And she was specifically interested in putting the clinics in mostly Black populated areas. So like inner cities and also the South and stuff like that. So Sanger spent a lot of time planning how to execute this in a perfect way so that Black people wouldn't be suspicious about her telling them about birth control and telling them to basically stop their own population from growing. And one of the ways that she did this was through feminism. And if you're a feminist, you obviously want to have women empowerment. You also want to be able to have a career. You want to be able to have an education. So she really pushed for feminism and to include Black women in feminism so that she could really, really push for, you want a career, don't you? You want an education, don't you? A child is going to slow that down for you. So here's a way that you can have your career and you can be really successful and you don't have to have children. And so she was really interested in pushing independence from men and also really pushing career success. Now, even though she was trying to be sneaky about this, Black people were still onto her. Black Americans were like, this sounds like, Black men especially, were like, this sounds like genocide. Like, it sounds like you really want to control one population from having children, while other populations can still grow at a natural rate. And she knew that she needed to get Black people on board that were really trusted by their community. So in order to do this, she approached pastors from churches, and then she also approached social workers so that they could be the ones to talk to their people, to let them know that, oh, this is like a really good idea. This is why it's so important for pastors and religious leaders to really know their Bible and to really be actually pure people that love people and that want the best for their communities. Because when you have pastors and religious leaders that do not want the best for their people, this is what happens. They are approached by people who want to give them money to betray their own people. And then this is what you end up with. You end up with religious leaders approaching their followers and telling them to listen to this woman who is evil and wants to get rid of their community. Anyway, so she managed to get a Black doctor, Black pastors, like Black churches on board, and she was also able to get a Black social worker on board. And they managed to convince people, but Black men weren't having it. They were like, this is ridiculous, you're trying to like genocide us. And Black women were more willing to listen because, again, there were situations where Black women were getting pregnant when it was unhealthy for them to do so. And they were getting pregnant when it was like medically risky for them to get pregnant. So maybe you already have like 8 children and then you get pregnant again after having a complicated pregnancy before. And so because women felt that those situations existed, they were more willing to listen to Margaret Sanger. And also because women were becoming more feminist, and so they wanted to chase their dreams. They wanted to be out of the house, they wanted to be getting education, and they wanted to be improving their careers. And so they were more inclined to listen to people like Margaret Sanger telling them, hey, here's your freedom in a pill. You can just take this birth control and you won't accidentally get pregnant and have a child, ruining your prospects as a career woman, as a girl boss. And so that's what they went for. At that time, the project was known, like what Margaret Sanger was doing, was known as the Negro Project. But after a while, it turned into what is now Planned Parenthood. And Planned Parenthood was started by Margaret Sanger. It's something that they're not able to deny. They have tried to distance themselves from Margaret Sanger. And when they couldn't do that, they tried to sort of create a distance, I guess, from Margaret Sanger and like how she was into eugenics. I don't know, but it is a bad look for them, obviously. But if you look at it now, there are still a lot of clinics, like Planned Parenthood clinics are still really concentrated around Black areas. I want to see if they are still concentrated in Black areas. It doesn't seem to be saying anything about that. But there's a tweet that I saw, and I want to pull that up, where someone was talking about the fact that other populations have like doubled and tripled, but the Black population has not, due to the fact that there's Planned Parenthood everywhere. Here it is. So this person tweeted, I'll put the tweet in. Xavier tweeted that this was the US population makeup for minority groups in 1980. Blacks were 12%, Hispanics were 6%, Asians were 2%. And in 2024, Blacks are at 13%, Hispanics are at 19%, and Asians are at 6%. In 44 years, groups have doubled and tripled in size, while we've just maintained. Coincidence? And obviously it's not a coincidence, because as you see, other populations weren't focused on as much as the Black American population for birth control. So Margaret Sanger wasn't focused on the Hispanics and wasn't focused on pushing them to be getting birth control. She was really focused on the Black communities at that time. And so those are the people she targeted, and those are the people she was able to get. So it makes sense that in 44 years, it would go from 12% to 13%. Black women get the most abortions out of anybody else in America. And that is not by coincidence, of course, it's on purpose. It's exactly the way that Margaret Sanger planned it. And she's probably dancing in a grave. Every year that millions of Black babies are aborted in America, I'm sure she's like having the time of her life, so excited at the fact that what she planned actually worked. And it works now because it's self-imposed, because it's now sold as like at the DNC. This thing that's happening at the DNC now, it's being sold as freedom. It's being sold as empowerment. It's being sold as something that it just isn't. It's not freedom to kill your own child in the womb. It's not freedom to be misled and told it's a clump of cells when it's obviously not a clump of cells. There was a video of Planned Parenthood staff caught on tape talking about ripping children apart in the womb, and also talking about selling the organs of the fetuses that they abort. And so they were selling livers, they were selling I'm not sure what other part, I think it was kidneys, but yeah, they were selling organs, the organs of the babies that they were aborting. That was a scandal that happened 10 years ago in 2014 or 2015, something like that, that scandal was quickly hidden from the public, so I don't think a lot of people know about it. But if you search it, you will be able to find it on the internet that there was a little bit of commotion around Planned Parenthood, basically like taking the organs of the children and selling them. So it was pretty grim. This is like a story that like I just couldn't believe it. Like the videos, I'm sure you'd be able to find it if you looked it up. The videos were scary. I know the videos are on Twitter. They're definitely on Twitter, so you'll be able to find them there. But I don't want to spend a lot of time on it. It was like disgusting. It was really sick to see people, and the way they were talking about it too was so blase blah. It was like they weren't talking about selling the organs of babies, and it was just like something that's really sickening. But that's the reality of abortion and the history of abortion in America for Black American women. And it's something that's really, like, when you see the stats, you can really see that, like, oh, this was the plan, this was the project, the Negro Project, and this is what they managed to achieve. Like, they were able to achieve exactly what they wanted to achieve. And I think that if back then Black women had listened to Black men, I think it would have been a better outcome. And also if the religious leaders hadn't steered their people away, I think it also would have been a better outcome. I think it's just sad all around that, like, there's so much secrecy around this. I think it's like important for every Black woman to know the history of Planned Parenthood, so that they know that this isn't something that was created for their own good. It's something that's created out of evil. And to have abortions being done just outside the DNC is sick. It's just demonic and sick, and it's something that the DNC should distance itself from, because you don't want to be the party of death and the party that is like set against children, like babies. I also think that though another thing now that's being really pushed is like it's immoral to have babies, because babies are gonna ruin the planet, or like the environment is like screwed, and so having babies is a terrible thing to do, because in 20 years time the planet is going to be full of toxins and this and that and that. On both sides there are studies that show one thing, and then on the other side they show one thing. But for sure 20 years ago they said that we wouldn't be able to breathe clean air 20 years from now, and we can still breathe clean air, obviously. So we know that that wasn't necessarily true. Yeah, I don't know. I think it's like super sad. When I first saw the DNC thing, I was like, that's obviously a lie. But when I went and searched for it, I was like, this is insane. I don't know why the Democratic Party would want to have this associated with their party. And yeah, it's very grim. But let me know what you think, and let me know if you knew about the history of abortion in America. I'm still learning about the history of America, and so every day it's something new that I'm learning. And I'm obviously raising Black American children, so I want them to know the history of like what they're coming into and all of that stuff. So that's why I need to educate myself, so that I know what to teach them, and I know what, like, where all of this comes from, why the world is the way that it is now. Yeah, that's all for me. Let me know what you think, and please add any information that I might have missed, or like any other interesting facts that you know. Thank you very much for listening, and have a great week. Bye.